Hi, my name is Chris Freeman. I teach AP Environmental Science at Kellam High School in Virginia Beach, and I want to walk through some troubleshooting with my lesson that I've created using this incredible document from the EPA Alumni Association, Protecting the Environment, a Half Century of Progress, and taking some of the information from this document and using another really exciting program, ArcGIS Story Maps, and sort of allowing students to personalize their learning through developing a story and story maps from the content from this and other sites. So there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot that students need to think about that's going to be a little different for them than what they're used to. So first off, this is an incredibly extensive document, and for this lesson, we're just going to be looking at the air document. So if you were to click on this one link, air, then you'd go to the air document. If you chose to click on water or drinking water or waste and disposal, you would get a different part of this interactive PDF. So if we click on air, that would bring us to this, cleaning the air we breathe. And so I just want to use this as our example for our troubleshooting part one. So in ArcGIS Story Maps, and this is a story map that I've just started for you, I want you to think about how students are used to, particularly if they have Google Drives, interacting in groups. And what I find is that they've become so comfortable with Google Doc or Google Slides that they don't even really think about having to hit save on documents anymore. But in ArcGIS, they do need to save their work. And also, they're very comfortable working in groups in a Google Doc or Google Slides, where there's seamless interaction, multiple drivers in a document where they can all be typing at once and seeing each other's thoughts, which is great, but that's not how ArcGIS works with story maps. So there's some warnings that you need to be aware of to help your students through this process and make sure they don't get really, really frustrated and actually lose a lot of content. So the first big tip here is that they need to be able to realize that this is where they have to click to save their work. So you hit save, and the work that you've just made, or in this case me, is now safe. But if there were other people in their group that were also in this document at the same time, which is certainly something that could happen, and if they were typing in this document, when I hit save, all of their work would be no more. And what's extra frustrating about that is my other teammates might not even realize that they've just lost their work. And that's because they haven't yet hit refresh on their screen. Once you hit that refresh button, then they're going to realize that all their hard efforts are gone. And so this is a very important point to emphasize. Only one driver in the driver's seat, only one person that is working in ArcGIS Story Map at a time. And so in order to have a productive group, they need to be working in some sort of Google Doc, lining up content from this wonderful EPA Alumni Association document, and then finding what they like from that, putting that down, thinking about how they're going to create their citations, queuing up content for the person who's designing at the moment their story map to cut and paste stuff into that story map. So what I've had all of my students do, which has been pretty productive, is to make a Google Doc. That's where they do the bulk of their communicating, and then they can take turns designing slides, but they need to really, particularly when they're working outside of my classroom, think through timing and how they're going to communicate with each other to make sure there's not more than one person at a time in this document. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and then we can see what my story map that I've made as a sample for you looks like. So understand that we're taking the EPA Alumni Association document and sort of branching out. We're certainly not barking up the wrong tree, but this is me in a tree as sort of a goofy cover for this. You certainly want your students to personalize their work, but you want their pictures not to be distractions like this. You want their titles not to be distractions like this. You want their content to be relevant to the material that they're working through. And if they're telling a personalized story, that they relate that personal piece back to the EPA document so that everything has a nice flow and a nice story arc. So if we move down to this interactive website is not from the EPA Alumni Association. In fact, it's one of many weather websites that I use that has some really nice, powerful visuals. And so you can interact with this map, make it look as you wish, and then embed that very easily into story maps. So if students go on the prowl on Google for some cool web interactive sites, they might be able to find something like this that they can put into their map to create some high visual contrast. And here we have this high visual. And what's nice about that is that in ArcGIS Story Maps, and this is the Cascade Story Map, you can have some scrolling features where your content sort of flows over the top, and they can interact with the map by clicking on Explore, or the viewer, I should say, can sort of look around and see anything. In this case, the emphasis is that you should see the ocean is an important feature for this. So this is Virginia Beach. This is where my students live, and it would be nice if students recognized that because we live by the ocean, a lot of our pollutants get blown out to sea, and LA has mountains and inversions where cold air is pushing the pollutants down closer to where the people are, and the mountains are preventing that air from blowing away. And so we have two very, very different areas that are being regulated by the EPA Clean Air Act. And it's just interesting to compare and contrast and have students think about these different spaces and how their lives might be different if they lived in a different place. So this is stage one, just getting you to think about, even though you're using the EPA Alumni Association documents, it's really important for students to also look for some other visuals that they can bring in to have some really powerful background visuals that personalize their content, and to keep in mind that there's only one driver in the driver's seat when you're working in ArcGIS Story Map. More tutorials to come, but hopefully this will get you started and make you feel a little bit more comfortable working in this program if you've never used it before. All right, there you have it. Best of luck.